The Oscars ended without a surprise, with Oppenheimer stealing the night at the 2024 edition, taking 7 wins. For key takeaways from the Oscars night, we're joined by Pierce Conran. Great to have you back.
Thanks very much for having me.
Good morning. Oppenheimer reigned with 7 wins. This was no surprise given how the movie did at other award ceremonies, right?
Absolutely. It was not a surprise in the slightest. It had long been expected to lord over the awards, and for many people watching at home, it was indeed the worthy winner. It was a universally beloved film. It was also felt that director Christopher Nolan was finally getting his due. He's been a fan favorite for many people for close to 20 years now, more than that, in fact. And even it made close to $1 billion, which makes it the most broadly popular film to clinch big awards there in some time. For years, the awards have been accused of focusing on relatively niche films that few people had seen, but that seems to have been changing over the past few years. The only real surprise was that it didn't win the Best Sound Oscar. That eventually went to Jonathan Glazer's Holocaust drama, The Zone of Interest, but that was also deemed to be a worthy winner. But I don't think anyone was too upset that Oppenheimer walked away with only 7 awards.
Right. How would you say the Oscars dealt with a lack of diversity this year? I mean, any noticeable change you'd like to point out?
Personally, I don't really think there was a lack of diversity this time. I mean, last year we had an Asian American film, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which swept the awards. It also won 7 prizes. So perhaps by comparison, this year's winners seem somewhat less diverse, but I don't really think that's the case. If we look at what won yesterday, there were 2 Japanese films which came away with prizes. That's never happened before. Godzilla -1 took the Best Visual Effects prize, and Hayao Miyazaki's animation The Boy and the Heron won the Best Animation prize, and that last one was a bit of an upset. Beyond that, we also had Davy and Joy Randolph, a Black performer, winning Best Supporting Actress for The Holdovers. Another Black American was Cord Jefferson, winning the Best Adapted Screenplay Award for American Fiction. There were other African American winners featured, including the Best Short Documentary winner, The Last Repair Shop. The only real surprise of the night was that Poor Things Emma Stone eventually prevailed over the Native American actress Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, who was expected to win in the Best Actress race. I think several years ago, the awards were heavily criticized for lack of diversity, and the Oscars since then have really opened up their roles and invited a huge amount of international guests. And ironically, I think that this helped Stone to win, because Gladstone would have been the favorite for American viewers who really care about the diversity and the Native American issue, but international viewers, I think, wouldn't have connected the same way, and ultimately they probably went for Stone. I think that was that.
Definitely. Robert Downey Jr. also notched his first Oscar for his supporting actor role in Oppenheimer, but there was also the snubbing of the previous winner's winner. What exactly happened?
Well, this claim was made for both Downey Jr. and for Emma Stone, who both seemed to kind of go up to the stage and sort of snub the people presenting them the awards, who were the performers from Everything Everywhere All at Once, Michelle Yeoh and Kei Kwan. But I think that this was completely blown out of proportion. It's really easy to misinterpret someone's minute actions in what is ultimately a very intense moment. Can you imagine kind of going up to stage and accepting an Academy Award, speaking in front of hundreds of millions of people, and really all you want to do is kind of get up to the stage and try and make the speech you'd been preparing for. Also, the format was quite different this year for the actor prizes, where there were a lot of presenters. 5 former winners come up and present the award, and to be expected to engage with all these presenters seems a little unreasonable. But if we dig into it a little further, Emma Stone was having a bit of a wardrobe malfunction, I believe, which made it pretty stressful for her, and she probably avoided hugging Michelle Yeoh, who was right in front of her, because that would have shown her back to the audience. And I think Downey Jr., the first person he saw on stage walking up would have been Tim Robbins, and he fist bumped also Sam Rockwell, who had introduced him, and then he goes and makes this speech. I don't really think there's any issue there.
All right, and also, unfortunately, the Oscars was not the best night for Past Lives, though it was nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Picture, but still, it was a huge success for the director Celine Song, considering it was her debut piece, right?
Oh, completely. I mean, she didn't lose anything. It's amazing that Past Lives, and an independent film that was also co-produced by CJ Entertainment, which previously had won Oscars for Parasite. It's amazing that it got so far, and so for it to be nominated for Best Film and Best Original Screenplay as a debut indie film with unknown stars in America is a huge thing, and has no doubt anchored her as a major cinematic voice for years to come. In fact, she's already working on her next film. It's called Materialist. I don't know what it's about, and I believe that Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal, and Chris Evans, all huge names, are in advanced talks to star. This is recent news, so clearly those names would not have been involved had it not been for all this Oscar attention bestowed on Past Lives. So huge success, even though it doesn't walk away with any awards.
Indeed, the young director has a lot to offer. And I would also like to point out how the ceremony honored the late Parasite star Lee Let's talk about that.
Of course, it was very nice to see Lee Sung-gyun featured prominently in the In Memoriam section. I know that I was kind of looking out for him. I'm sure a lot of other people were as well. There's always a bit of controversy around In Memoriam because they can't fit everyone in there, and there's always going to be a few people that are going to be upset about certain people not being featured. But to be honest, in the case of Lee Sung-gyun, it would have been very noticeable if he had not been featured because, of course, he was one of the main actors of Parasite, one of the most popular Oscar winners, Best Picture winners of the last few years. So had he not been featured, now that would have been a real scandal. So he should have been there. He was there. I'm glad he was there.
Definitely. I knew it was coming. All right. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Pierce. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.